So in this video, I plan to do something a little different. Today, I am going outside to get some inspiration. We are going to go for an adventure around Sydney to try and find the perfect building. That is because today's goal, we're going to go around the city to find the building that we want to replicate and build it in Minecraft. However, I have no clue what building we're going to remake in Minecraft, so we're going to have to go on an adventure. We're going to have to explore around the city and find the perfect building. I am also going to be joined by Starkins, Blue Lapis, Skull Crusher, and Lightning Sushi as we go on this adventure. So cue the time lapse.
We are now in Sydney and it is time to search for the perfect building. After doing plenty of searching, we have now finally found the perfect building.
It's simple, clean, and honestly, just something that instantly feels like it could exist in Minecraft. A lot of the other buildings we passed had way too much going on when it comes to tiny details, like weird curves. It would have been almost impossible to recreate accurately because of the amount of details. This building here has those minor details that may be difficult to add into Minecraft, almost impossible, but it's almost simple enough to actually be able to recreate in Minecraft. Let's use the windows for example. They've got a super thin border with a few different colors going on, so I'm probably going to have to experiment with the windows for a bit. Could use either a mixture of copper or warped trapdoors to get that look going. As for the rest of the block palette, you can kind of already see it forming in your head. Cyan terracotta for the bottom section, you got that little strip coming along the bottom, and then the main walls can be like sandstone, and even the sections that look a little bit paler than the other sections can be made with white terracotta maybe. If you look right at the top where there is the roof, you can get a hint that there is a little bit of red going on, which tells me that the top of the roof of this entire section is going to be red, so a mixture of red terracotta or even just normal terracotta itself would work perfectly for up there. There's also a strip of blue coming across the top of the buildings that could easily be warped stairs or dark prismarine stairs. There's also two garages there as well. One door is closed and one of them's open. For the closed one, furnaces could probably be the most simplistic way of showing a closed door. But for the open one, inside I'll just have to shove a whole heap of random workshop stuff like crafters, composters, copper rods, and even use those redstone components like observers and maybe dispensers, just to give that vibe of that there's a whole lot going on inside there. Why'd you take a video of a pigeon? That is not part of the script. When did I say that I wanted a video of a pigeon? There's also a nice deck on the side, which I'm going to predict there's tables and chairs on it. And I'm thinking of just simply sticking with the sandstone vibes with the warped combo. There's not really too much going on. There's some support beams, which might be a little bit difficult to make. Let's not forget the nature that is around the place. We've got plenty of trees. We've got plenty of grass as well in some areas. So I will have to experiment with making the perfect trees. They don't look too difficult, but I want to make them at the best of their ability. But really, I've talked long enough. Let's hop into an actual world and get building, because it is time to get these ideas down in the world. There's really no other way to figure out how to build this than to start planning out an idea and building it ourselves. So we are now back in Minecraft, and I have found myself a sort of flat area. It is in the middle of a lake, and well, this is where we're going to do our build. This island, however, I need to get rid of. So I'm going to quickly get rid of this, and then we shall start with the building. Well, now that we have that sorted, let's just quickly create a flat area with a whole heap of packed mud and bricks, considering I actually don't know what size this thing's going to be. We're going to figure out how big this is, considering we're going to be building, I think there's like 9 or 10 different buildings along the side there. We're going to ignore the roads and all of the scenery around the buildings. We're going to get the buildings done first, and then we'll come back to the other parts of the build later. There's our platform. I wonder if this is big enough. Let's actually start to get a layout and foundation of what we're going to build. Now, if you look at the strip down at the bottom, the first thing I am picturing is tough. Well, actually, there's a couple blocks I'm thinking of, and these are the ones. I really am leaning towards these two more than these two, so I'm definitely going to eliminate these two, which are the concrete variants, leaving us with cyan, terracotta, and tough. The reason I'm leaning more towards tough at the moment than I am with cyan terracotta is because if we search up tough, you'll see that it's also got slabs, it's got walls, it's got stairs. And then if we search up terracotta, it's only got the glazed version, which I don't think I'm going to be using that. So as much as I feel like this wouldn't be a bad option, I think I'm going to go tough as that bottom strip down the bottom of the builds. Does that look like a reasonable size for you? I hope so, because that is quite big considering if we're going to make 10 of these, yeah, that's going to be quite long. That is actually how long it is going to be if I was to actually build all 10 buildings, which I am going to do. So we're going to have to extend this platform out a bit. So there we go. That is going to be the size when it comes to width and what we're actually going to make, excluding the pathway and roads on the outside, because I am going to get to them later in the video. So now let's get to the wall section, which I've got a couple blocks in mind. If you actually have a look at the buildings in this image here, you'll see that there is every 3 buildings, or every 4, I should say, there is a more of a paler style building, which means I'm going to have to go with 2 different block palettes. Now, for those wider buildings, I've kind of gone through and just added all the white blocks that I think would suit this. However, I'm easily going to eliminate these, as these are a little bit too bright, I would say, and I probably won't use the planks as well, because if you look at it, it's got those line textures that go through it. This is just a smooth wall. I want to keep it as smooth as possible. So it really is between these two, which I think the pale oak logs will go well, or even if we go with the pale oak wood. They're both the same thing, just one doesn't have the top on them, so it might be a bit better. Do you guys see it? Because I reckon that is the best block we can get for the pale sections of these builds. Well, it legit is in the name, pale oak log. But you guys get what I mean. There's a brighter, and then there is the not so bright, more of a sandy color. And that leads me to the next section, which is searching up sand, because I think either like smooth sandstone or even maybe a little bit of sand could get involved. Do you reckon normal terracotta? No way it's normal terracotta. I think the first block I look at is smooth sandstone. Birch maybe? Birch has a sandy color to it, especially the stripped version. Red sand is a little bit too bright for my liking, or should I say a little bit too red. Copper is, no, not copper. I reckon that sandstone is the best bet for this. Okay. I think that's the combo we're going with. I don't reckon I should trial anymore with this sandy texture. That looks exactly like the wall. Guess it's time to fill in these walls. I won't add any details yet. Let's just get them built. Okay, so there are our 10 buildings that we are going to make. Well, they don't really look like anything, to be honest. Because we are cutting off at the final building, we are not going to include anything beyond this point here. Like even the road, we're just going to cut off right here. And we'll worry about connecting it to stuff later, because, you know, if you guys are interested, I might even add this to Doki Craft. People wondering, that is my SMP that I play on. And so I thought it will fit perfectly within the city. Let's see how it goes. All right, now it's time to work on the windows. Now, these windows, I have no clue how I was going to make these. The design is super detailed, and Minecraft is a bit more on the blocky side of things. Before we start, huge shout out to Starkins, as he helped me design some of these windows and come up with an idea, and we came up with a whole load of windows. Let me show you. So here are some of the window designs we actually came up with. It was just a small session. As you can see, some of them aren't as good as others. Like, I'll probably easily get rid of this one. This one is nowhere near as good. But when it comes to designing these windows, you can see that I've used a mixture of warped fence gates. We've also got some warped trapdoors, some copper trapdoors, and I think they all look pretty nice. We could even just leave it how it is like this. If you look at the windows in the actual image itself, you see that they are straight lines. So that's why I tried out the warped, but they're like side to side. It's a little bit more difficult. Yeah, you know what I mean. So I'm most likely going to get rid of this one as well. The other thing about these windows is they have that slight bit sticking out the bottom. And that's why I was thinking of these warped stairs sticking out like this, which I don't think looks too bad. They are a little bit chunky though. But for now, I think the best idea is to go with the copper trapdoors with warp fences in front of them. I think that's probably the best we are going to get. Now let's implement that into this build inside and let's just see what we can make. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm liking the look of this. It definitely gives the same vibes as the window in the actual build. And it's probably the closest we can get considering that we can't get any smaller blocks than what we are using right here to match those windows. Well, I guess there's more windows to implement now. So if you look above the windows I just made, there are actually two small windows with the exact same design. So what I'm thinking of doing is just doing the exact same thing with warped fence gates combined with some trap doors. Yes, that works very well. There is one thing I'm missing though, and that is some wool. Specifically white wool to be exact, because if you look at the windows once again, they have a white sort of background or curtain inside. So I'm just going to cover up these trapdoors with a whole heap of white wool and hopefully that solves the problem. Yep, that does it. That solves our issue. You know what I'm missing actually? There's a lot going on in these windows and you can see there's a bit of depth coming out the side of them. Trapdoors. We're missing birch trapdoors. That doesn't look too bad. We need to consider that there's going to be a whole load of other details on this building. It's not just going to be the windows themselves. And we're actually going to have to make this another like 10 times. So that's going to be fun. Now, before we get onto the higher windows, there's another section I want to work on. And that is if I grab some sandstone, or actually specifically cut sandstone, you see that there's lines coming across the building? I reckon we could implement that into the building like this using cut sandstone because it gives those details in the actual build themselves. That's giving it a bit more detail. I like that. And that brings us to these top windows now, which I predict I'm just going to do the exact same thing. They've also got a black background. That is also because they're open, but the lights are turned off inside. I'm going to assume that. Let's just fill these all up with trapdoors and fences, and let's see how it looks. Yes. This is starting to come together now. Now, if you look at these top windows, you'll see that there's almost a window ledge over the side, and it is a different color. So I'm thinking of using the exact same trapdoor technique. However, we are going to be using warped trapdoors as part of this. That doesn't look too bad if I say so myself. Hang on, it's missing one thing. I reckon we could go birch here. That actually doesn't look too bad. And should I add it to the bottom? Let's add it to the bottom. Let's see how it looks. Doesn't look too bad. I think just having it at the top where the color changes is probably the best idea. Now, my idea is if you see those little parts sticking out, these sections here, but on the actual, I don't even know what they're called, pillars. But if you look at the image, they have a little bit of detail and depth to them. And so now if we come back to Minecraft, you'll see that I'm planning on using a mixture of tough walls and sandstone walls to create that depth. Now that is starting to come together. Now I've got myself some dark prismarine stairs, and that's because if you look at the top, there is a strip that comes along, and it's a very dark blue. I could almost use warp stairs here, but I feel like that prismarine does very well. Yeah, look at that. That looks good. Probably the best we can go with. Now, if you look right at the top, you'll see that there are some orange sections, or like almost a red section. Easily, I'm going to add trapdoors, and specifically copper trapdoors. Look at that. That looks really good. Now there's just a couple minor details left. I'm going to put some buttons down for those little ventilation. I don't even know what they're called. Are they ventilation? I think so. Now, I don't know what to do with these sections here. If you have a look, there's little parts sticking out. I was thinking of just going with normal birch trapdoors. Oh, not birch trapdoors, sorry, birch buttons. We could go with birch fences. Do they look like they're too much? It's not a bad shout, to be fair. I'll leave it that for now. I'll see how it goes. Now, before I move on, if you guys have any suggestions or ideas that I could add to this build or change to make it look like the more realistic version, then make sure to comment them down below because I might be rebuilding this on my SMP, as I said earlier, and I like to make this build at the best of its ability. Please comment down any suggestions you have. Maybe add some birch trapdoors up there, and that is basically it. Is there anything I'm missing? Just a couple bits of cut sandstone. Let's replace those, and that's it. Now, I think that's everything for the building. We've got all the windows in place. We've got all the details that we can possibly do by now. And so let's get working. We've got another, I think there's another 10 more buildings we need to make. They aren't just copy and paste, however, though. You look at the next one, there is a doorway. We've got some garages in the future as well. One's open, one's closed. We've got some lights that we need to add to these buildings. It does seem like this building here that I just made, there's probably another like 3 or 4 versions of itself down the line, so I could probably copy them in, but there are other buildings as well that I can't just copy in. Let's get building. It's time to get these windows and buildings sorted. So I've now changed several of these units to now have all the windows that they're going to use. And this is starting to come together. You can see that there are a whole heap of buildings attached together. I would almost call them townhouses or apartments. They look so good so far. I'm very happy with how it is turning out so far. The use of birch connected to this looks really nice. I feel like the trapdoors as the window sills are a little bit too much now that I look at it, but also it's probably the best we're going to get, and it still looks good. I'm not disappointed with any of it. It looks really good. So now what I'm going to work on is these 2 empty slots here. The reason I haven't worked on them yet is because this one's got a entrance or a doorway into the actual place, and over here we've got a garage. This one's just a closed garage. We've got an open garage here, but we'll worry about these paler buildings later. So with this building here, we can do our typical windows again because, well, this top section here is exactly the same as all the other buildings. So I'm just going to quickly do that. I'll be back with you very shortly. So we brought in these windows now. We've just copied it from all the other top sections, but now it's the part that it's going to start changing, which is the bottom section here, because we've got our entrance to make. We've got as well, there's different windows here. As you can see, there's actually 3 along the top. Funny enough, if you actually have a look at some of the windows, some of them are closed. They almost look like vents in a way. We've got an open one and then there's 2 closed. So there, those are the 3 holes we're going to have to try and fill in to make these windows. The one open, we could probably just do the same thing by adding trapdoors and then add in some fence gates as well. The ones that are closed, however, we could probably just do the same thing, but leave the fence gates how they are, so they're not actually open. Yeah, that could work. Really nice. Let's add a couple details to this build. Okay, that's definitely starting to look really nice. If you look at the windows here in Minecraft compared to the ones in the actual image I took, or photo I should say, the windows I made here in Minecraft are a little bit more detailed and stand out a lot more with the birch and then the sandstone in the background, but it is the best I can do with the depth that's in the photo compared to Minecraft. You know what I could even do? Just to make it look a little bit fancier and a little bit cooler, I'm going to add some birch signs around the place, and then we're just going to do this. That's not too bad. That is not too bad at all. Oh, and also I need to add in some dark oak buttons. I think maybe above each window. There we go. Because if you look, there's, 3 spots there. I still don't know what they are. They could be ventilation or something. I think that's the middle section done. Now, the hard part. I have not even thought this one through. The entrance. Okay, well, we're going to have to make an entrance now, which might be a little bit difficult. If you look in the photo, you see that there are windows, but they're almost a little bit dark, even the door. So my instant thought is to add in grey stained glass. I wish that there was a tinted glass version. That would work so well if there was tinted glass panes. So we got signs on each side of the entryway, which are technically black banners. So I'm just going to add those to the sides there. And then it's also got this little tarp over the top. For that tarp, I think I'm just going to go with a simple design of adding fence gates coming out of the actual wall here. And then what we can do is just add string in between each one of these gaps, and now we can just absolutely cover this entire thing in a whole heap of grey carpet, and that's really all I need to do. I do want to test this out with some fences though. I could add a bit of warped fences in it. As you can see in the photo, the support is slightly going up on an angle, and it's really hard to replicate that in Minecraft, so I'm wondering if I add a fence. Oh, I could even add a fence here actually. Yeah, that's a good, I like that. That works out really well. Now, there's also a little section sticking out. I don't even know what that is. Is that like a light or something? I should have checked while I was there. But instantly, I can see that being a spruce fence, and I can get a brown banner. And I'm going to put that right there. Does that look very similar to the photo? I hope so. Yeah, that will do. Now, there's only one thing we're missing from the underneath section here, and that is we need ourselves a door handle. Now, this is the first time I'm actually going to bring in an armor stand. This is a mod, or you can actually get data packs version of it, but this is the reason I haven't updated this world to 1.28 or 1.29, I forgot what version it was, where the shelves come in. I know there are plenty of opportunities I could use the shelving around this build here, but I'm actually playing on earlier versions, and that is because some mods haven't updated yet, including armor stands. So if I'm able to give this guy arms and I make him hold a hopper, hang on, let me just mess around with armor stands for a bit. Does that look like a door handle? Does sort of look like a door handle. We'll leave it at that for now. I think it looks good how it is. We might come back to that later. Now, last bits of details. There's these little windows with blinds almost, or curtains coming down from the top that I could add above this place. Right about here is where I want to add them. However, if I grab myself maybe a cyan banner, does that look like a curtain? That could work. Add in a cyan banner. I might also, for the first time, grab some sandstone stairs. I haven't used these yet. If I had sandstone stairs there and then I add, or maybe not there. Can I do it like, oh, that might be the best I can do. It shows that the blinds are kind of shut. I could even actually add the copper trapdoors behind it just for minor details. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look too bad at all. There is a little bit more detail though. I might even add some sandstone or cut sandstone here. It's definitely probably the best I can do. Let's see, if I add these here, how does that look? Probably the best I'm gonna go with. I think keeping this actually as sandstone looks better. But I would say that's done. We've worked on this now, and so that is now done. Well, we've got this building over here to make. Now, with this building here, it's got the same windows for the top, same for the middle section. Now, there's a garage at the bottom. Once again, let me just add some windows here, and then we shall get working on the garage. Now, originally, I was actually going to add the same windows as the middle section that you see here onto the building with the garage. But if you look at the images, I realized that there's 3. So we're actually going to copy those exact windows over there, and we're just going to bring that right here. Okay, onto the garage now. The thing with this garage is this one has a closed door. So we don't actually need to worry much about the interior for this one. Now, for the garage, I've got 3 different options that I'm playing around with right now. And I'm gonna use blast furnaces or furnaces. I know they look weird from the front, but if you look at the back, they definitely give that garage type of vibes. I've also implemented some grey shulker boxes that are upside down because they look like roller doors as they come down. I don't mind shulker boxes. They're very dark though, and there's a lot going on. I think I'm gonna try furnaces and see how that goes. Okay, I think I'm going with that. That looks really nice. I actually use a mixture of blast furnaces for the top section, but where the bottom of the roller door ends is where I just use normal furnaces. That looks sick. I could actually even use cauldrons. The only thing about cauldrons is the fact that if you look at them, they have a gap underneath, so you'll be able to see through this roller door, which I don't want to happen. I could, however, use that for the open door that we're going to do later. So that's all of the sandstone buildings done. So now all we have left to do is work on these white or paler buildings. Now, we're going to have to change up the block palette a bit because this building here has the exact same windows as all the other ones. However, obviously it is more white than these ones here. So we could use like a mixture of quartz. I reckon even, yeah, a bit of quartz maybe. Grab some bone blocks. I don't mind a bit of bone blocks. The quartz bricks look very nice coming along, replacing the cut sandstone. I reckon it is almost an exact replica of the sandstone. However, we've just moved it to more of a paler version. Now, we've got these top windows to make, so they're exactly like these. However, they are a different color, as I said. So I'm going to try and implement maybe some quartz and some bone blocks to see how this looks. How is that looking? It looks really nice. The bone blocks look so good. I could have even used the background wall as bone blocks instead of pale logs, but to be honest, the bone blocks look really nice standing out with the pale oak as its background. One thing to probably point out before I start working on the garage is these pillars here, we're not actually implementing them to the side here because, well, we don't actually have any walls that replicate any of the pale oak. Like, the closest we've got is diorite, but it's not going to look the exact same. However, if you do look in the photos we've taken, you'll see that there's a red, I don't even know what it is, just a red block or something on the side. So if we place some tough wall here and then we get some red nether brick wall as well and place that there, that is almost an exact replica of that section. And now we can cut all this out and let's get working on an actual interior of a garage. Well, actually, I did say I wasn't going to use cauldrons, but for the bottom section of this roller door, because it's open, I reckon cauldrons will look the best. Does that look like a roller door open? I think it does. I think that's the best we can get. It looks really nice. Now we've got an entire interior of a garage to make, so let's see what mess we can sort of do. Okay, so I kind of got a little carried away, to be honest. I went and built the entire interior of this garage. So to start things off, if you look at the front, there are 4 wheelie bins just there. I only had enough room for 3, I realized. When I was making this, I tried to add a 4th, but there wasn't enough of a gap here. I also needed a gap on this other side as well to be able to fit the player. So I've only added 3. I actually used cauldrons once again as the bottom part because, you know, it almost looks like there's got wheels on. And then the top part, oh, maybe actually, you want me to tell you what will even be better? Green terracotta, maybe. Let's try a bit of that. Yeah, that looks a lot better, to be honest. There we go. So those are the wheelie bins. If you come across here, see that there's some blue tanks in the corner. I might actually grab this shulker box and just like do that, maybe. You can see that there is a blue machine in the corner, and I've kind of just used shulker boxes for it. It looks really good, not gonna lie. We've got the bin here, which is the hopper. We got some bags. I didn't know what to do with that. I kind of just placed a chest. I could have maybe done a whole lot of other stuff, to be honest. I could have just done wool, maybe even a target block. I feel like that's still a bit too much though, because the target block's got a bit of red on it. Fletching tables aren't a bad idea. Actually, even a loom. We could even replace this with a loom. I've added quite a few pipes around the place with levers and copper rods, or lightning rods, sorry. The ventilation at the top, I kind of use half slabs to look like it's out of the ceiling. It's not part of the ceiling. I think that looked really good. That's probably one of my favorite features in this, not gonna lie. And then we kind of just added a whole heap of redstone components around the place to make it look like the actual garage. So that's the garage out of the way now. Now we've got one final building left to do. This building is basically an exact replica of this, so I'm kind of just going to fast forward and get it done. And there we go. There's our final building done. To be honest, we're not exactly done yet. There's a couple smaller details we got to do. We've got to do the lights at the front. You can see there's some hanging lights over the side. And at the top, we got these triangular shapes that we also need to make. I feel like these top sections aren't too difficult. It's sort of, we just make, you know, a triangle shape, as I just said, but we put a little bit of extra detail into it. If I grab some copper stairs, actually, we can almost make a pattern that comes up. But then if we also copy these trap doors, we can almost make a triangular shape just like that. That looks pretty accurate. And then in the center, we also have a window. So this isn't too difficult. It seems just like one of those windows I've already started making. If we do that, and then we add in a trap door and we add in some black concrete, there is our window. There's also a pole sticking up out the front. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I could just do pale fences, to be honest. However, these trapdoors are in the way. I could actually remove them and just do this. It doesn't really have anything at the top. You know what? That could do. I might even actually change these to be quartz. I could add some signs, maybe. We could get some pale signs. Oh, that looks sick. Now that we have one done, let's do this exact pattern on this other one here. And then we'll get on with some lights. And there we go. There's our roofs done. Well, not entirely. I've got the entire roof I need to make. I don't even know how long these buildings are. We'll worry about that soon. Let's get some lights in. Now for the lights, I was thinking of going with a typical copper trick again. If you remember at the start, we added these fences here. They look like they're in the exact same spot as the light. And I believe the lights start around on this pale building here. If I place a lightning rod there, I can't actually place a lever on it. If I go to set block Minecraft lever and I make it so it is powered to true, facing, oh, I don't even know. I'm just gonna have to guess. Let's just go east. Nope, wrong way. West. And you see that it is facing down now. And I could just place another copper rod there. And look at that. That is almost exactly the right shape. Now, for the actual light at the end, we're going to use some armor stands again. So if I make it so it shows arms again, we'll get rid of gravity. And I'll give him the block. Ooh, is that close? Oh, we're almost there. There we go. That's exactly in the center. And so that's our light. That is what we're going to make. I think it looks really nice. And now we've got to copy this all the way until the final one, because I believe we have the exact same light pattern all the way until this point here, which it goes back to the fences. So now that we have all the lights done, look at how cool that looks. I absolutely love it. There is just one thing. I tried doing a bit of work on the outside balcony or veranda. It looks ugly. I just made a mess here. I was experimenting with stuff and, well, it didn't turn out to look good. And it's something that I'm just like, I don't think it doesn't need to have too much detail. There's a lot of support beams along the entire outside, but trying to add them in looks really, I don't know, ugly and weird. So I might even just get rid of these, to be honest, and just have the one support beam. That's the best we're going to get right now. I'm going to have to come back to that later and we'll worry about that another time. That isn't now. Now for these buildings in the outside area, behind them, the roof, you know, all that type of stuff, I'm going to worry about later. We actually didn't get any vision of what that's going to look like. However, that does mean one thing, and that means it's time to move on to the roads. So we've got a couple roads we need to make. We've also got some pathways. The trees we're going to worry about later. I can come back to that. We just cover all this up. We could add some of these here, actually. They don't look too bad. We'll leave it at that for now. That's the outside wall. We got some roads to make. Now, the bricks and the packed mud is actually a good pathway coming out of the side of these buildings. As you can see also, it kind of transitions into more of a darker color, which we can go almost with the gray concrete powder or gray concrete. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. Actually, looking at the image, it's more of a, yeah, it's almost like a gray concrete powder color. It's almost exactly like the road. The only thing is it's got a gutter, so I'm actually going to get rid of all this. And we're going to replace all of this with grey concrete powder will probably be the best. So there's that in now. We've got ourselves that pathway coming along. We've got a lot of trees as well. I reckon for the trees, we could use a bit of basalt even. We could do something like that. And then we'll just have the tree in the center here. It seems like there's only about 4 trees. So that's where the trees will be because there's only actually 4 trees there. I won't work on the trees now though because we've actually got a road to make. It does have a massive curve as it curves around the corner. I think the best we can do is go with slabs, something similar to that as we go into the road. Almost like that. I reckon that's a good pattern. Actually, what I'm going to do is lower it 1 block. This water level's going to be a pain, actually. Okay, I made a boundary. I've lowered the water levels in this area. So now we can make our road. And there we go. There's the road. Now, the thing with the road is there's this whole parking area down the side, which is a solid white line. So I could possibly even do that. And then it comes across into another white line. And then it has more road there. I might actually make the roads a little bit bigger. So that is technically what it looks like. It begins to curve about there, I think. So that's the road section length before it becomes a curve. But my real question is, does it look better here with the gutter as blocks or does it look better as slabs? I think I'm going to go towards the slabs. The only thing is this part of the block is showing itself, which I kind of don't want to happen. If there was half slabs of this stuff, it would have been so much better, but obviously there isn't. It's Minecraft. So what I'm going to do, because this video has already been long enough, we're going to go through and make all of the roads, or at least get a good chunk of it done, and then I'll be back to you once I get it done. I finally got all the roads sorted. Actually, that's one thing I haven't properly done yet, and that's gone and added the grey wool for details around the actual road. Apart from that, we've got our lines sorted out. If you look in the image, this is Australia, by the way, so we're driving on the left side of the road for those Americans and whoever else drives on the other side of the road. But you can see in the image that firstly, let's start here. There is an extra road that comes off going the other direction, and that is for people coming down this way. But we've got the lane here that cars will go into and turn right. You know, I don't need to explain how roads work. You just understand that I've properly done all the lanes in this. We've also started working a bit on this little garden in the center. I've located where each tree needs to be. They aren't going to be huge trees, even though in the image they are quite big. So I will work a bit on them soon. I've also started a little bit on the fence over here. There isn't too much I can do with detail-wise because of the amount of details in this fence. So I've kind of just stuck with nether brick for now. This hole here, however, needs to be a little building. You can see there is, I don't even know what it is, to be honest. Could be storage, it just could be something. So I'm going to have to build that at some point. But this is coming along. All we have left to do is the trees. We've got a bit to build with the bushes and nature. We've got the sandstone wall to build. And then we've got all the street lights to do and extra details. It is annoying having the water right here because it means that the edge of the road is going to be concrete instead of concrete powder. Anyways, let's get building on this thing here. It is just sandstone, it seems. So we're just going to grab a whole heap of sandstone. We can get smooth. Oh, it's not really a smooth texture, isn't it? It's really weird. It's in between red and I don't know. We could go with red sandstone. Hang on, I'm going to mess around with this for a bit. Now, if you look at the doorway, you can't really see it in any of the images I got, but I do remember when I walked past it, this doorway was sort of in the ground. That looks pretty accurate, doesn't it? Let's just go with that. The weathered cut copper stairs and slabs work really well for this. That doesn't look too shabby. I think that's the best we can get. We're going to keep it like that. Well, there's that done now. And as I said earlier, I've got to go through and put all this wool throughout the road, so burnouts or whatever you can call these. Let me just put these around. I think before we get onto the streetlights and the main trees and nature around the place, let's get the big sandstone wall done. So it seems just to be primarily sandstone, so I'm probably going to use this over red sandstone just because that building over there was a lot darker compared to what this wall is. So I think just the normal sandstone route will probably be the best, but what design is the real question. Does that look like a decent wall? I feel like the cut sandstone is a little bit too much. There is a bit of a hangover as well, so I could use some stairs. Something like that. Doesn't look too bad. And then it comes down as a slope as it goes down through this curve. And then it just seems to stay the same height. So sort of something like that. And it does seem like there is like some sort of window or gap here, which I could probably just do with iron bars, to be honest, because it looks like there's some sort of bar inside of it or window. So I'll just do that and just get some black concrete to cover the front, just like that. So there's that done. Now we can move on to the part I've been procrastinating for the past while now. The trees. I'm not really going to say much about this, to be honest. I just want to get this done. So let's just make some trees now. Okay, trees have been done. I've done a little bit of work. I also got Starkins and Skullcrusher, 2 members, to actually help me make these trees. Let me tell you, they actually don't look too bad. Look at what we've done. We went a little bit over the top. I'll definitely say that. We've got ourselves the multiple trees that are down the center path here, and they look really good. You can see that they split off into multiple branches because if you look at the image, that's exactly what's going on here. Maybe I could get more fences involved or something, but they split off into their own sections, and so that's how these trees work. They look really good, and they're very tall and big, and that's the main priority. They're almost just as tall as these buildings here on the outside, but as you can see in the actual image, they seem to be just as tall, so this is a perfect height. We've also got this tree here, which we used birch for. It's almost an exact replica of these trees here, but we used birch instead, because one thing we figured out when we were there, I don't know if you can see it much in the image, this tree here is actually quite brighter than all the other trees over there. We also added azalea leaves on top of the oak leaves just to add a bit more detail to the trees, make them look a little bit better, but I'm very happy with how they turned out. They are some of the best trees, I would say. And when I say best trees, I am not good at trees at all. Like, if you look behind me, these are something a little bit different. I was very much experimenting with stuff. I'm also going to give a lot of credit to Skullcrusher. If you look at the trees, they're very dry, or I should say, the leaves seem a little bit dry. You got the actual tree trunk as well, which has these little spikes coming off, but it's also just a different, it changes color, I feel, a little bit. And so that's why we've got the birch logs, the mushroom stem, as well as composters. And then we use these things, mangrove roots, on the outside, because you can see there's little sections of just, they look like, I don't even know what they are, just dried plant or something. So we just use the mangrove roots, and then we added a mixture of jungle fence gates, jungle fences, and birch fences inside of the trees, as well as a couple copper rods as well on the outside. And we used a mixture of spruce leaves and acacia leaves on the outside to make it look like it's drooping down. So that's what we did for all these trees. And at first I was a bit hesitant. I was like, I don't know how these are going to look, but now that we're done, I think they look a lot better. And the only downside about this is we might have to destroy some of these building parts, and we'll just add a couple leaves here and there as well in front of the windows, just like that. There we go. And so that now leaves us with one thing: adding the final details to these paths and adding the street lights and just adding all the random stuff that is all along these pathways. Let's actually design some street lights first before we actually go and spread them around the place, because we don't actually know what we're going to make. So we're kind of just going to try and copy down as much as we can. The thing with the street lights are they are a different color compared to every other, well, block in Minecraft. So it's a little bit hard to replicate. At the moment, I've got polished tough wall down at the bottom. I might even add an extra one on top of that. And then we've also got some pale oak fences. Seems like we're going to use the armor stand trick again. Okay, that doesn't look too bad for a light. I'm not going to lie. I might have to stick with that. I'm a little bit hesitant on adding pale oak fences for this center part, but we don't really have much of an option. Unless we use blocks at the bottom. Does that look any better? Nah, I think the pale oak fences are the best option to go with this. I feel like it's still a little bit too chunky when it comes to adding walls and blocks into this. I think we have to keep it kind of as thin as we can, but at the same time, we also need to make sure it still looks good. Time to make some street lights. Okay, so there are our street lights added to this build. And now that means that we are left with one other light. And I don't even know what these lights are, but they seem like just lampposts. So we're going to have to add several of them around. Once again, I have no clue how I'm going to make these, considering of how limited blocks we've got. Definitely seems like we could add a lot of blackstone into them. Believe there's one here. We could even add some nether brick maybe for the thinner parts, because that is the darkest fence we can get. Print it out again, and maybe we could add just some glass on the top. Do you reckon that's all we need? Oh, actually, you know what? We're going to bring in the armor stands again. That could be the light in the... Oh, that actually looks sick. Yeah, let's do that. And so it seems that there is another 4 of these. There's one about right here, here, and there are all the spots of where these lamps are. Time to get building. So there is all our lights added in the game, which means all we're left now is with the minor details. There's all different drains on the road. There's all different drains on the pathway. There's, you know, sewers in the road. There's bins around the place. There's, you know, little rusted away parts on the path. You know what I mean? So it's time to get building. We've got some parts to finish up. And that is our build done. How cool does this look? It really does feel like the image. Thank you guys so much for watching. It has been an incredible video to make, a really long one as well. This has taken me a week to even record it without editing. So thank you guys for sticking around until this point in the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Who knows, I might even make this build on my SMP in DokiCraft. But once again, thank you all for watching, and we shall see you all in the next video.